I must edit that. Right,
Yeah, that's
one.
not going in.
Hello and welcome back to the What the Falk Sunderland Review Show, where we are all extremely happy, even if the 6:30 wake-up call has left me a little bit tired. But it was sunny, it was funny, it was fantastic, and it was a Sunday, which I fully enjoyed, and I think all of us did at Stadium Light, as an outstanding display saw us destroy Sheffield Wednesday 4-0. And I've been dying to talk about it ever since I got into the car to come back home. Two people joining me tonight. First and foremost, Peter. He's back for it's your hat trick, mate. Really good
Yeah,
place to start, isn't it?
what a place to start. Back in Berlin, the first of them coming from my Berlin bunker. So apologies for any echo that is on there. Graham has said he can sort it out. What a game to be talking about, though. That will do it. Hey, I mean, obviously, fantastic for my ender. If somebody needs a song now, it's him. I have heard one to the tune of "Living La Vida Loca" that I think needs to get away. There has to be something to the tune of who was it? Was it the Shaman who had "He's a Good, He's a Good"? There's got to be something there with his first name.
Yeah.
But no, just brilliant. Really pleased for him. I mean, I was literally. Yeah, I'll put my cards on the table. I was slagging him because he should have ran. He should have gone off quicker for that chance that came just before his goal. And no sooner had I got that out my mouth, he's in the right place at the right time with still a heck of a lot to do and a cracking left foot finish. Brilliant stuff. I mean, Dennis Serkin again. What do you say about that man? I mean, he's phenomenal. He's class. He's the best around. Chris Rigg is 17. There are bits of kit in my gym bag older than Chris Rigg. I had a look, and I wanted to make sure before I went on. And there's a pair of shorts from a football team I played for in 2006. So
Oh,
that's. I mean, they're in good nick, but they're not as in good nick as Chris Rigg. What a player he is! I'm just going to end up listing 1 to 11 and all of the subs at the moment because they were phenomenal. I was slightly confident, and I need this recognizing it in the group chat. I did say that I thought Sunderland would do the business, and they did. They really, really did. I have to say, I didn't expect them to be as categorically brilliant as they were. Comprehensive performance and a clean sheet to boot. Who doesn't love one of those?
clean sheets. I mean, it's always important to have a clean sheet in my house. Ross, were you pleased to see Sunderland win, and also Elijah getting his my ender away? Did that come out
Oh,
right? No,
that was bad.
I'm not editing that.
I
Like,
wouldn't edit it. I think
I
people
must.
need to realise what we've got to put up with.
Well, and I must try harder and get back to.
Oh God,
No, no, just move on. Just
that
say
gets
words.
worse.
I'm just
Yeah,
happy. I'm just.
yeah.
I'm tired.
But there's nothing we can do to save that, is there, Peter? There's
No.
absolutely nothing. We can't even dig him out there. Like,
Yikes.
he's gone. I'll
Yikes.
get back.
No.
I'll get back to speaking about the football. Brilliant from start to finish. The high press was first time I've managed to see a Regis Le Bris team in the flesh. The press was outstanding. They didn't just do it for the sake of it though, and it was the first time I think I've seen a Sunderland team press with full organisation. As maybe so, it changed depending on who was on the ball, whether it was a 2 out of possession or a 3, and then Rigg even joined in. Sometimes it became like a front 4. It was just brilliant to see. Danny Rowe's a really good manager, and for me, he got his arse handed to him today tactically. Which is early doors. I'm not going to get carried away. I know a lot to do, but from a tactical side of it, for Regis Le Bris, he couldn't have got off to a better start in front of the home fans. To go up against a side that, let's be honest, the last home game we had, it was men against boys when we played them. It wasn't even close. They were first at every ball. They were higher pressing. They had more energy. That game could have been 4 or 5-0. And today, it was the opposite way around, and some had switched. I was a bit wary at first when Brown was off because I thought Brown made such a good impact at Cardiff. But to me, that maybe shows maybe the depth in our midfield's a lot stronger than what we maybe thought it was, that the fact that now he could come back in Saturday against Burnley, and I'd be like, well, he doesn't get in ahead of 17-year-old Chris Rigg or 19-year-old Joe Bellingham, or the old guy that is Dan Neil at
18.
24. You know what I mean?
Job is 18.
I thought he just turned 19. Even like, you know what I mean? Even better. You know what I mean? Like, unreal. Pete was right. You could have went through the whole team saying how good everyone was, but as a collective and as a unit, we were so good going forward. It could have been more. Special shout out to Sheffield Wednesday keeper for that save from Rigg at the end. How the fuck he got down to that is unbelievable. Everyone in the crowd was up. It was in, and then all of a sudden his hand just came out of nowhere and took it on the post. But to me, I know I'm going to sound very boring after a 4-0 win, but Anthony Patterson wasn't troubled once.
No.
Not once.
The only chance I can think of is it ended up being offside and he made a good save, but the rebound was knocked in.
Yeah. But he was a mile off. One from the first one, he was a half a yard off. And the only other one, maybe you could say at the end, when that big dopey Smith put it 20 yards out of the bar, the Geordie twat. Sorry, I've had a pint or 4.
I'm leaving it in.
Yeah, you can.
It's the first time in a while I can say this is the words of What the Falk podcast, not just Ross Black.
We're all in the group. But yeah, just overall a brilliant day from start to finish. And I expected us to be competitive, but in the manner we did things, it's got me really optimistic that a few more signings to make sure we've got a bulky squad. Got to remember, there was no Brown, no Ballard, no Pavetta today, so there's 3 straight away. A couple of strikers and maybe full back cover for Hume, because there's no natural attacking or like any natural right-footed full-back. Then I genuinely think we've got a squad capable of being up there for the top 6. But we've also got to keep it. We've just got to. I'm going to say something. I think we should lock Jack Clark in a room with a pen and a contract and say, you're not coming out unless you sign it.
The boys, I mean, we're going to get on to pick one player out, but like whoever you pick, there'll be a lot of times this season when like Peter will pick someone, Rossi will pick someone, Brad will pick someone, Dave will pick someone. Then it'll be left to me and it'll be like, oh, bloody hell, how do I get a 5th out of that? Like, I'm not worried who you pick this week because I could wax lyrical about so many of them. Pato was arguably the worst of the lot because he didn't actually do anything. He might have just fell asleep, and things he did need to do, like his kicking was a couple went out of play, but like in general, he did some really nice kicks today. I just think you don't want to get. He did get the
advertising board. He did get the advertising board back off the pitch after it needed to. That blank advertising blanket that blew onto the pitch. It did a good job there. It was swift. It was in one swift movement. So
he just looked like he couldn't be asked to do it though. For it was like, oh, for God's sake, I'm having a day off here. But Pete, I'll stick with you. You picked out a few before, and rightly so. I honestly, like, after the game, it was nice when you're looking at the players and the players that played, and even like I know he's not going to get mentioned from yourself or Ross because there was better players today. But I watched back the highlights just as I got in about half an hour ago, and like, how good was Elise? Like, and he's someone who's not probably going to get picked, but like everyone was just a solid 7 minimum.
Elise, as a left-sided centre-back, looked absolutely at home. He looked comfortable. This is the thing that throughout the team that really stuck out for us is nobody looked harassed. Nobody looked like... I mean, Sheffield Wednesday are a good team, and they're going to be a good team this year in the Championship. Danny Roll's a fantastic manager. He's got them playing well. And what we did to them was made them look completely ineffectual, and without it really seeming that difficult for us. You asked us to pick one player though, Graham. I was just letting you get a few sneezes out there just to let the people in behind the scenes of what goes on. If I had to pick one player, I'm going to be phenomenally unoriginal, and only because we've got to remember he's 17 years old and he looked like a bairn when he scored that goal. I mean, I think I'll always remember him scoring that goal against Fulham that never was. And him looking like a child. He looked like he'd been one of the ball boys had gone in there. That's not what Chris Rigg looks like anymore. Chris Rigg looks like a bloke at 17, and he's one of the most accomplished midfielders that I've watched in a while. You know, it's there was a moment earlier on where he does all the simple things really well. His runs off the ball are phenomenal. The way that he creates space for the likes of Roberts to be able to cut in. He had one go on his left, that space came because Chris Rigg made a run that drew people out away from it. He also, when he's not doing the simple stuff or doing the clever little runs there was a moment where he tried a little pirouette like Zidane away from a couple of them. He's got all of that in his locker. And as we said earlier on, there's there's goals in the kid as well. That was a fantastic save. I mean, in the group, I think it came off his shin, did it not? The strike that he hit. But if that's coming off his shin and it's traveling like that, it was hit into the ground. It was the right way. Well, everything that needed to be done was done right for it. It was only a phenomenal save from the goalkeeper that denied it. What a coup that has been to get that lad signed up. And what it does is it gives me a bit of confidence in a leadership, a management group that I don't have a whole 100% amount of confidence in. Because if players like Chris Rigg, players like Job, if players like Dan Neil were led to believe are signing contracts and committing futures, Dan Ballard, if they're committing and signing contracts and committing their futures to something that they see that goes on behind the scenes, there's a lot goes on that we don't know about. Even the best connected people don't know about. So they see it day to day and they think, right, I want to be part of that. And I think Regis Le Bris has clearly brought something in. I love him, by the way. He sits well with me so far. Of course he does.
Too.
He's only 96 points and 96 goals, 94 points and 94 goals away from where I was predicting there would be jokingly in our season preview. Keep counting out those down week by week. But no, Chris Rigg, he could well, as was said earlier by Ross, Brown was signed to play, and he's got over 400 appearances in the Championship. And at the moment, do you drop Chris Rigg right now? I don't think you do. And probably he sits the next one on the bench, and we see how Rigg does. And if he keeps that consistently, which I haven't seen anything that suggests he won't, then it's going to be tough for Brown to get back in there. And what a coup that has been. Just to say it again, getting him signed up, getting him signed up on the long term. Wonderful bit of business, wonderful footballer, a pleasure to watch.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I thought there was a lad that came down and he'd missed the fourth goal. And I came and oh, what happened? It was like, oh, and people went, my end has scored. And I just looked and I went, aye, but Chris Rigg, that's where it starts from. And the lad just looked at me like, oh yeah, of course it did. Of course it did. I just think, I think Brown was excellent last week. And I think in normal circumstances, he doesn't get dropped, but I'm sure Ross is going to pick one of the midfield three. I'd be surprised if he doesn't. Rigg's gone. You can't
they
put
were
Brown
good,
in ahead of any of them.
They were good, the three of them today. I mean, I do love it when they don't look hassled, they don't look rushed, and they don't look bothered. Well, not they don't look bothered. They don't look like they're being bothered by the opposition and they're just getting on with the job. There was a ball that Job played at the end that was aimed for Jack Clark, and Jack Clark was getting mugged at the time. But if he hadn't been mugged, Clark is on that. And as we were saying last week, I mean, there's always a lot to do. But if he cuts in on his right there, 9 times out of 10 at the minute, that's a goal. But that ball from Job came from Nout. And, obviously Dan Neil as well, controlling things. They look secure. They look set. I've got trust in them. Mm-hmm. That's a weird thing to say for a son. I've got belief and I've got trust in them. And in that midfield, head's completely gone. Clearly, I'm going to have to wrap this up because I'm already planning my trips to Real Madrid and everything in the Champions League in 3 years' time.
Ross, it's hard for me to disagree with a lot of what Pete's saying. To be fair, today's win was so good, and a few people went, oh, but not negatively, but oh, we did this at Southampton. Let's hope we can do this again next year. I thought today was a much better performance than Southampton. To be honest, I agree.
Yeah,
but who you picking out?
Paddy Roberts. Paddy's back. It was like watching the Paddy Roberts before last season.
Got an assist as well.
He did.
Nice
two set piece deliveries, 2 goals for Sunderland. from Patty Roberts. Considering a lot of the stigma was last season, his goal contributions, he's never involved. Well, he couldn't be more involved this season. And what was very noticeable to me was last year I felt like after Ahmad left, he was a bit on the wing on his own all the time. Whereas today he had either Hume, Job, or Rigg basically right next to him. Then he had that platform to bounce off or take a runner. You know what I mean? Something like that. And there was one chance at the end, I think it was already 3-0 just before half time, where him and Rigg had a little 1-2 and he cut inside and he bent it over and it just went over the bar. He had a few times in the second half where he just didn't get the bend on it, but just playing with that bit of swagger, and it takes the pressure off Clark, because if you've got someone on the other side as well, they're not all just going to that side, and then that's when you see the likes of Clark, like last week. To be fair, other than the goal, he didn't really do much, whereas today he was much more involved and much better. And last week it was like the chance for my end of last week came from Roberts playing at a Job, because they were close to each other, and just having that bit of understanding, having that a bit of partnership, you know what I mean? And if we can have Roberts up there, but I think again, going back to what Peter said about the midfield, about Brown not going in, but that's a big thing about having Pavera this season. He knows he's not going to play every week if he doesn't play well. You know what I mean? Because he's got a championship player there ready to play who's done well at this level. So that strength and depth's going to be huge. And again, the Southampton one was a good game, which we mentioned, but Southampton had plenty of chances and Pato had to pull off a good few saves that day. Today, they didn't really do much. But the Southampton game, we looked a bit flustered, and it was a bit like how we had Bradley Dack up front. Like, let's not take the piss. Like, you know what I mean? Today, we had a proper cohesive unit, and it looked right, whereas that one looked a bit... had a few... The goals, for instance, Ekwa scored a screamer, but the other one, the keeper basically dropped. The other one, Jewison Bennett became a fidget spinner for like 3 times before whipping it into Rigg. So, like, just the overall quality of the opposition and the way the game went today just felt more of a team that I expect to do that consistently, rather than a one-off against an opponent who was really bad. And I hope that's the case. I hope we're not looking back at it going, oh God, remember what we did there. But again, it just proves that if you've got strength and depth, whereas the day we lose Brown, you bring Rigg in. We need that on every part of the pitch. I know it's tough, but we need a Ballard to be able to come in for Elise. We need a Pavetta to come in for Roberts. We need another striker to come in for Mienda. We need someone to come in and play maybe centre-back or right back, especially if Hume goes under. If you've got them parts in the squad, there's nothing to me that says that team can't be top 6.
No, not at all. I 100% agree. And I think, looking at the team today, honestly, you could pick just so many people out because they all played well. And I think, like, I thought Mundell looked sharpish when he came on. I mean, he had like 10 minutes here or there, but there was big chunks of that team missing. Like Ballard misses. He was missing last week as well. But it's so hard for me to pick one player out, and I know everyone's screaming at me, Job. Job was outstanding, but I praised Job so highly, and I kind of wanted to raise more of a point about somebody else. He's probably not going to get the praise of others again today. But I just think, and I know for some reason some people are not fans of him, but for me, I don't think people will realise what Lukë O'Nien offers this football club as a player and as a person until he leaves. And I don't understand why. I'm not saying he's Maldini. He's never going to be. I'm not saying he's infallible and he doesn't make mistakes. But the things he contributes to the dressing room, to the team, and to the style of play that we have and the way that he pulls the ball out from the back, is just so important. And he makes so few mistakes. And I know people are going to be screaming, saying, what, you're on about Green makes this, that, and the other, because some people feel that way, and that's completely valid. You can feel not this way. I just personally think the day Lukë O'Nien leaves the football club, you're not just losing a good, dependable player that can play in multiple positions. What you're losing is a massive heart of that football club. And I just feel like O'Nien, I mean, he's our top scorer for one, alongside Mienda to begin with. But just his celebration today, his nice big flag. Oh, also, there was don't know if anyone noticed it, but the surfers, there's flags underneath. We've always had the O'Nien one for a while. There was a Dan Neil one today. Unfortunately, it didn't say please sign a new contract, Daniel, but I'm sure they'll fix that by next week. But I just feel O'Nien, to me, I very rarely have qualms or quibbles. But Peter, you wanted to add to that about
Do
Luke?
you think? Do you think the Lukë O'Nien hate? And sometimes it is. And I was watching the match with me dad's over in Berlin for a bit, and sometimes me dad's been watching them for crumbs. I think like since the late '60s. So it's a bit of a bludgeoning to take. So sometimes it's a bit dour. And he's a difficult one to raise the spirits with my happy clappiness. But he's and he's not up to the standard. Do you think that sometimes it's because he was probably out of that League One team that came up and stayed with them, the most League One of them? And whereas the club has moved up with him, he's moved, well, the club's moved up, and some of the like Jack Clark was in League One, but he'd come down from much higher levels. So lads had come down from levels where there's Lukë O'Nien was at League One level, really. I know he was a championship player, but you know what I mean? That was probably standard. And he's come up with the club. I'm just trying to find a reason why, because I do think he has a ceiling. He has a ceiling where he's not going to, I don't think he's going to be able to progress so far. But as you say, what he brings off the pitch, what he brings in terms of to the team clearly, is immense. And when you see the lads score the goals, how can you not love them, man? And I know the malarkey, the nonsense, the kissing people and riding people's backs and all that stuff does rub some people the wrong way. I like it. I
do
want to
too.
see it a bit. I love them winding people up, man. I do love it. When he gives away penalties for stupid stuff at corners, which I think he has tried to work out of his game a little bit, it winds me up. But everybody needs a dickhead for the other side, and he's our dickhead. It's like, do you know what I mean? It's like every other team thinks, oh God, that O'Nien, but like for us, he's our dickhead. So it's.
I think where it comes down to with O'Nien, and we'll not make it an O'Nien podcast, but I think it's going to sound like humble brag, but it's not. I interviewed Kevin Ball about 7-ish years ago. He says people all the time say it was, "Oh, Bally, you weren't the best footballer, but you did the best." And he says, and I say to people who say that, was I good at tackling? Yeah. Did I score some goals? Yeah, yeah. Could I score headers? Yeah. Could I pass? Yeah. Did I lead the team well? Yeah. So I did lots of good things well. So I was pretty good at like loads of things. So I wasn't that limited then. And I think that's where like O'Nien, and I may be doing him a disservice here, is probably a little bit viewed as limited because he just does all the basic things really quite well, like 7 out of 10. But what I would say is I think he's actually technically better than some people give him credit for, considering he's like for the past 5 years, 4 years, been learning on the job how to be a centre half. He's doing all right. He's doing pretty all right. But there's so many players that I could have picked out today, but I feel like I didn't want O'Nien to get looked over because I think he's fantastic. I know Mr. Sunderland is reserved for Kevin Ball, and it should be, but he's Master Sunderland if we're going to have an understudy for the modern day. But Ross, you look like you want to say something. Is it about Luke?
It was
Was it?
It was more just to add a bit of balance where I think
No.
everyone loves him about that when he does the good things, but it would be negligible of us to ignore the fact that last year he let himself down defensively so many times, and I think it was more of a mental thing where he felt like because we were struggling, he had to be the one to do something all the time.
Perhaps.
He had to be like his daft runs out in midfield, the big tackles that get him like into trouble when he dived in all the time, and I felt like that responsibility was maybe. We've got to remember he was captain a lot of times last year when he probably's. I know he's made club captain, but I think having the armband on is different on the pitch psychologically. And I feel like he was the face of all this that when it was bad, because Luke's at centre half, he's shite. You know what I mean? And it kind of did play up. And whereas what's been good, a lot of this talk was, without Ballard by his side, he's rubbish. And then he's been the kind of senior centre half for the first time alongside Alessi. And I feel like them two complement each other really well. And to get on Alessi, he hasn't really done much, but he hasn't needed to because the things he has done, he's just got on with it. But what is massive for us is having two left footers on that side, balance in possession, especially on the wing, the fullbacks when they're bombing forward, not having to cut back on themselves because we've got two inverted wingers anyways, means that having on the overlap, you've got genuine width and genuine pace down that side, and it's to me that's why it's vital we get another right back in as cover, because if Hume gets injured, this whole system that Le Bris has got is fucked because it's so needed for transitions in possession to have them fullbacks as technically wing backs when the wingers invert. So having a left footer or a centre half who slows things down on the right hand side would take away a big part of the way we transition it in the high press and the counter attack.
I want to get through some listeners' questions. We've got like 10 minutes left, give or take, but like it would be remiss of me to kind of not mention the fact that Eliza Mayenda scored 2 goals. So I'll stick with you on this one, Ross. Look, everyone's delighted to see it. I thought the second one, it was gifted to him a little bit, but I think it had a lot to do. It was a good finish. And the second one that he scored was just what we wanted a striker to do for a long time. Just get in the box and like get on the end of something Clarkey or Roberts does. It is a listener's question, really, but I kind of want to also fit it into like how pleased are you? What did you make of his performance? But somebody's asked if he could be a long-term solution at the number 9. So that I want to ask you that question, but also caveat first and foremost with like how impressed were you with his performance today? Because we said last week we thought he was decent, and I feel what I seen last week that I thought that was decent from him kind of was like accelerated a little bit today, and a lovely 2 goals to add to it.
Yeah, I think when we first signed Mayenda, he was really explosive and pacey, and we thought, oh, he might be the one to run the channels. But the more I see of Mayenda, I think he's just a finisher. Like I don't think his overall game's great. He pressed off the ball really well today, and he pressed really high, took that instruction on. But I don't think he's going to be one of them who's going to take on free players and score. You know what I mean? I'm not that I expect him to do that, but I feel like he's one of them who's going to be a finisher. But what was great to see, like, see the first goal, he took it really well. And what I like, well, he didn't rush it, because maybe the slight negative you could have is the chance, although it was a great save against Cardiff, it seemed like he panicked a bit. Whereas today, he got in the position and he didn't panic. It was a lovely place finish. And that just bred confidence more. His link-up play came from that more, and he got stuck in a bit more with the centre-half, so we're very physical. And the second goal, like you say, just be in the right areas. You know what I mean? You don't have to be. That's what I think. In this team, if you're a striker who's got any wits about you, who can hold the ball up, take your shots off with your first or second touch, and just get in the 6 to 12 yards in the area when the wingers cut in. Like, I know it sounds really fucking basic, but if you're at a decent level, you will score goals because you're gonna get the service, especially under this new system. For a long-term solution, I think you will be in maybe 2 years. But he showed at times he was raw today against Cardiff again. He did all right, but he wasn't spectacular. He was good. Do you know what? If he's through our academy and he's an 18-year-old, you're thinking he's fantastic to play a few games and bring off the bench and be a part of it. But you don't want to put him in that. Change Eliza Mayenda's name to, I don't know, Jimmy Fellows. I don't know why I came up with that name. I don't know if that's a real name. But
Eric
you know
Morrison.
what I mean? Somebody like that from the Northeast, and the expectation wouldn't be on him to be this world beater that seems to come from. And I think he's kind of tarred by the brush of being, oh, he's one of the kids Speakman's brought in. Because you know what I mean? Like and to me, you look at him and Hamia, it couldn't be further apart. The work rate from Mayenda is second to none off the ball, the press. Even when things didn't come off from Mayenda today, he hustled and he kept going. But again, that rawness is why I think we do need another centre forward, or even 2. But I think you give him this year to be an understudy and a player who, we're going to have to rotate throughout the whole of the season. You're not going to play every game as 1 or 2 strikers. And I think the real emphasis has got to be on this year to be a squad. Mm-hmm. And he's already part of that now. And he's proved now that he can be decent at this level. And I think you will be in 1 or 2 years, be ready to lead a line. But for now, for his own development, we can't do what we did to Job last year and burn him out and kill him. We've got
Couldn't
to let
agree
him
more.
develop at his own pace and ensure that when he does play, he can give his full, 100% at it, and he can learn from an experienced forward who comes in, because he's still got a lot to learn. There's plenty of times where we try to get out. There was a spell for like 10, 15 minutes where we couldn't get the ball, where you could see Falk, Roberts, and even Rigg just saying, run the channels, and he was stood in the middle. Just little things like that, giving out ball. So that's something new he will have to learn. And again, that's all experience, and that's why he needs someone to learn off. But overall, buzzing for him as well. He had a tough spell at Hibs, and to come back, and he's proved, to be fair, got to give it to Regis Le Bris as well. He said it was a clean slate, and he's one who's took it. You know what I mean? He's took it by the horns, and he showed us as fans as well. Look, I didn't have a great start here, but I've got plenty to give, and that's why we brought him in, because he had such a big potential.
I think with my ender as well, I think I'm drift from today because I think it was really important that he got at least one goal, but I don't want it to be like he has to score every single week now. I don't want that pressure on the kid. I don't think it's fair. I think if he can come off the bench, if he starts next week, okay, and then we get a striker in at the end of the window, okay. But I think realistically, we have to look at it as someone who can come off the bench and just get goals here and there when they can. And then next year they go, right, I'm going to push for that starting spot. And then he's 20 the year after that. And then you kind of go on. But we're almost done. So, Pete, I'll fire a few quick fire questions at you. I need to ask you this one. Great listener question. How much is a fit Dennis Serkin worth?
More money than any team has under the current financial fair play systems. I really believe that right now. He's under contract. He's locked up for that. I mean, if somebody comes in with 50, 60, 70 million, I think club would start considering it. But, probably not as high as that though before they would. But no, it would have to be, stupid money that could finance a whole team, because it would be ridiculous to sell him at the moment unless he wanted out. It doesn't seem like he wants out. Seems like he's very happy playing. Looks like a very happy camper and is phenomenal. By far and away the best left back in that division.
I don't want to sell him on the podcast, but I think if there was a Premier League team looking for a left back and he had better records with fitness, he's Premier League ready. Without a shadow of a doubt. Without a shadow of a doubt. Ross, I'll fire the next one at you. It's a long conversation for the time we've got left, but I'll try. Does Rigg become a starter now and Brown the rotation option? You know what? I'm going to answer that shortly. I'm going to try and answer that short. I think that the answer is technically, with so many games in the season and all the good midfielders that we've now got, based on the first two games, they're all rotation on there because they're all starting players. Okay, that one's answered. That's fine. I'll give you another one. Right, we've got 2 minutes. I know that this is my question, not listener question. It's fine. I'll chuck this one to you first, Ross, and then Pete, you after. But how excited are you for Burnley next week? Which sounds weird, but they've started like a train. We've started like a train. But most importantly, not just how excited are you, what would 3 points mean next week for you if we got them?
It would just be another 3 points on the board. I'm not getting carried away yet. It's a long season to go, but it will be a good barometer to see where we're at, because we've played two teams who, okay, Sheffield Wednesday, I think, are going to be good this season. But realistically, there were two teams who struggled last season who we've also beaten. So the level-headed and boring man inside of us is going, right, good. But let's see how you do against the big boys. And we'll go from there. But even if we win, even if we lose, it's a process and it's a long season. And that links to what we mentioned before about squad, who starts. I think we need to stop being obsessed with who starts every game. We learned last season that it's not about who's the starting 11. It's about how strong we are as a collective. And everyone will play a part of that. If you're going to get promoted, everyone needs to play a part in it.
Yeah, I agree. Peter, you got any?
Very quickly, because we've got less than a minute. Every game is just 3 points at this pace in the season, but beating Burnley would set out a stall to show that they are really probably looking at that top half of the top six. 94 points, 94 goals to go.
Exactly. We're not that far off when things are positive. Pete, Ross, always a pleasure when Sunderland are as good as we have been. Great start to the season. Thanks for joining.
Can I have a quick shout out as well?
Who for?
The stadium the day was wicked. The flag display beforehand, great. New speakers. It's like being in a beefer.
I've seen Rory after the match as well. He's buzzing. Class. Just top the day off that. Love a wee bit of Rory Fallow. He's got two new cats.
Right, the Sheepfolds and the Fans Museum, both brilliant.